I don't like those programs where like they're the 30-day challenges, because I know as soon as that your 30 days is done, I'm like, what has that actually taught you? You know, you've given up all these things that you love, and you know, a lot of people I speak to who you know, they're giving up bread, they're giving up chocolate, they're giving up that. I'm like, yeah, but that's great, but what are you going to do once it's finished? All you're going to do is go straight back on it once you've had your 30-day challenge. It's straight back on and then some, because you've had that, you know, that time frame of deprivation, and I just think life's too short to be depriving yourself of,
Exactly.
you know, the things that make you happy. Like, what are you going to gain out of that? Like, you're just going to be miserable. So all you're going to do is you're just going to think weight loss is just denying yourself of everything. And I don't personally believe in that, because I think, well, I'd give up after a couple of weeks.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of Slimming Stories. I'm your host, Claire Oldham West. So today's episode is starting slightly different. So I'm videoing this intro while I'm recording the episode on my Mac, and I'm being really careful not to say absolutely, and what's the other word? There's another word that I always say. So I'm being really careful, because I can't edit any of my introduction out, because this is going to be on video. And I wanted to give a bit of, I guess, behind the scenes, just to make this more relatable to people. Now, I've recorded and explained before that my back's a bit dodgy, so this week's episode is going to be a rerun, because I can't quite sit and edit for a long time this week. The guest that I've chosen for this rerun is Victoria Summers. So Victoria was a guest on Slimming Stories for episode 11. And I feel that Victoria just embodies resilience. You know, she had to go through the fires in Melbourne, Australia at the beginning of the year. And she's gone through COVID, she's gone through lockdown twice. And, you know, she's got a young family. She's a nurse, so she's seeing this, you know, at the front end. She's really in the thick of it. And I know that she's going to kill me for saying this, but she really just does embody resilience. And I just wanted to kind of pause for a moment, and I talk a lot about self-care, and I thought, Claire, what you're doing, you're going to sit and you're going to try and edit this podcast, and your back's going to hurt. That's, you know, really, I really can't be doing that. So I need to look after myself. So that's why I'm putting through the rerun. But I also wanted to give this opportunity for you as guests to really think about 2020 and what this year has meant for you. And it's been a heavy year, but there's so many positives that have come out of 2020. We're in November, you know, maybe I could have done this just before January, but I thought I'm going to do it now, because we need to really reflect on this year and just look at how far we've all come. It's been one of those moments that, you know, you could not have written this in a storybook, but we've gone through it. We're still in it, but we've survived it, and we're doing a really great job of doing that. And just to, you know, practice self-care and just be kind at all times. I know for myself, I mentioned, and I think it was the intro in last week's podcast, that this is the time of year that I go out shopping. I absolutely adore Christmas shopping. And this afternoon, after I've recorded this, I'm going to sit with my stepdaughter and we're going to pick out some presents for Christmas. And it just feels so odd. It just feels strange. And, you know, for me, Christmas is all about, you know, the decorating, going out shopping, seeing all those lights and just soaking up the atmosphere, which we can't do this year. I can't do this, but I know that other people can't, especially for those that have got young children. It must be difficult, but each day, each week you're getting through it. And at some point, we're going to look back at this time and think, my goodness, what a year 2020 was. But we can also focus on the fact that it's brought people together. Communities on Instagram have grown. Zoom has been the norm, hasn't it, for get-togethers. But we're doing it. We're practicing new ways of communicating. And it's been tough, but we're getting through it week by week, day by day. And whatever it takes to lift your spirits, you know, you do that. Set aside time for yourself and just recognise what you've been through and what you're still going through. And rest assured, you will have built resilience, just like Victoria. you will know what to do. Your brain will realise that, actually you've been through this before, you've done this before, and you can do it. And it will help you just to, I guess, take on board those days that feel overwhelming. And I'm really looking forward to Christmas. I am so looking forward. And my stepdaughter makes these gorgeous pom-poms, and I'm going to try and do like a pom-pom circle for the wall and decorate that and put glittery stuff on it and make it really cheesy. But that's what I'm looking to do anyway, because why not? Why not do something different? Let's step outside the comfort zone and do something different. And never in my days would I have said that I'm gonna put out an intro to a podcast episode and not edit it, because I'm videoing it at the same time. And I know I've stumbled. I've not said any yet, so I'm really, really pleased. So have a great week, and here's introducing Victoria for another rerun of her slimming story. I think before we even start, I just want to mention that from the UK, we're looking at the fires in Australia, and it's been absolutely horrendous. And looking from afar, I just can't begin to imagine how you're feeling. You've mentioned that you're a nurse as well, so you've really got the thick of it, and you're seeing the devastation firsthand, aren't you?
Yeah, it's just been unbelievable. Like, the media is it's just crazy, because it's taken over the whole east coast of Australia. So it's the top of Victoria and then onto New South Wales as well. And it's, I don't know how many thousands of houses they've said have been lost. And I think I'd heard there was about 500 million animals have been affected as well. So it's been really, really intense.
Oh my goodness. And how are you managing? Because I know you've got a young family, and seeing that firsthand, has that been difficult for you?
It's hard for us because we 12 months ago we actually got evacuated from our house. We've got a national park near where we live, and we had bushfires. So we went through it last year as well. We had been evacuated for about 3 days. So it's quite, it's quite confronting for us, and we weren't really affected with the fires because it was about 4 or 5 kilometers away. But we know the haste of having to literally pack up everything and leave. So to see this happening, this year again, it's just been such an awful summer, and it's only just started. So they're saying that, I think this last couple of days we've had as well, it's actually got worse as well. So it's been quite scary.
Well, I think it's safe to say that between my friends in the US and in the UK, that everyone's thinking about you over there, and we're all concerned, and there's lots of well wishes coming your way. And you've had an amazing journey with your weight loss, Victoria, which is why I've invited you on to join me today, just to have a discussion about that. And I know that when I looked at your Instagram account, I know you're a busy lady, you've got a young family. So you just want to start by telling us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to the point of wanting to feel healthier within yourself.
So I've got 2 young children. I've got a 2.5-year-old and a 10-month-old little boy, 2 boys. I'm a registered nurse, and I work part-time. My weight loss journey, I've always struggled with my weight, probably since I was a child. I had 2 extremely thin, fit parents who had no trouble maintaining their weight, and my sister's quite slim as well. And I was always the one who struggled with my weight my whole life, actually. Probably my 20s, I was quite slim as well. I had a lot of time to go to the gym and had a lot more time for myself. I did find, though, what brought me to Weight Watchers was my first pregnancy, where I think I gained about 40 kilos. I think, I'm not too sure what that is in stones, quite a lot. And I think I kind of went through the concept of eating for 2, and I really just took that on. What I think what brought me into to do, well, it was Weight Watchers, and it's now WW. And I lost 30, I think I was about 33 kilos the first time around, and then I got pregnant with my second son, and I'm back again, and I've lost about 17 kilos. I've got about 12 kilos to go before I get to my goal weight.
Brilliant. And just to convert kilos to stones or pounds even, so I think you mentioned that you lost 16 kilos, which is about 2.5 stone. So you'd had a larger, obviously this large weight loss, and then you'd had your children. So how did it feel knowing that you'd had this loss, and then having your children, and then thinking, I've got to start again.
It actually wasn't too bad the second time around because I'd followed the WW program. I think I had a lot of faith knowing that it was going to come off.
Yes.
That was the big thing that I didn't really stress about because I did know it was a program that had worked for me. I was on it for about 18 months. So I knew that when I had my second son that I'd go back on the program and it would work for me. And I'm a big believer in very slow, sustainable weight loss. So I knew
Mm.
that it would stay off because I've had lost the weight in a very sustainable time frame. I think the 33 kilos took me about 15 months. It was a long time, but so this time around, I think my goal is about 18 months. I'd build the same.
And I think it's important for what you've mentioned there about sustainable weight loss. I think you've looked at this as like a lifestyle choice, isn't it? It's not something like a slim fast diet or a shake diet where you can go on it for so long and then you just feel like you want to kill somebody. It's a healthy lifestyle, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the big thing about WW. It's actually a lifestyle. Like it's not an antisocial, a diet. As in, you can still eat all the regular food that everyone else has. You're not excluding yourself from any social events. I mean, we all eat the same food. Like my husband, my children, I cook the same meal for everyone. And that's what the big thing is. And I mean, I have been on different diets in the past where I probably have lost more weight, but I've put it all back on and then some. And that's the big thing is I don't like shakes. I don't like meal replacements because I have done that. And it's not sustainable and it doesn't really teach you anything. All it does is it's just a band-aid for your weight loss. And then once you stop it, you go, right, I'm done. And that's where you find when you put all the weight back on.
Exactly. And I think those quick fixes can be quite tempting, can't they? They're quite glistening, those lights, and it's like, okay, let me just get rid of half stone, let me get rid of this, block of weight within this period of time. But when I've been on those plans in the past, I feel quite shaky. My sugar levels just don't feel right at all. And having a plan that's healthy and nutritious, like a Weight Watchers plan, is definitely the way to go. And your family are enjoying it as well, so that's great.
Yeah, and I find I don't like those programs where like they're the 30-day challenges because I know as soon as that your 30 days is done, I'm like, well, what has that actually taught you? You've given up all these things that you love, and a lot of people I speak to who they're giving up bread, they're giving up chocolate, they're giving up that. I'm like, yeah, but that's great, but what are you going to do once it's finished? All you're going to do is go straight back on it once you've had your 30-day challenge. It's straight back on and then some because you've had that that time frame of deprivation, and I just think life's too short to be depriving yourself of
exactly
the things that make you happy. Like what are you going to gain out of that? Like you're just going to be miserable. So all you're going to do is you're just going to think weight loss is just denying yourself of everything. And I don't personally believe in that because I think, well, I'd give up after a couple of weeks.
No, exactly. And I think looking at weight loss and looking at your numbers going down with the pounds that you're losing is great. But at the end of the day, if you're able to stick to a healthy, nutritious, balanced diet, then the weight loss will naturally follow. That's a natural rhythm of eating healthy and moving more, isn't it? So are you also able to get in the exercise as a busy mom and
I usually do I don't do a lot of exercise just because I'm time poor, but I do often do walks. We live up the top of a hill, so by the time I walk down the bottom of the hill and back up, it's about 3 kilometers. So I am quite time poor. I don't get to go to a gym. Personally, I don't really like going to the gym. It's not really my thing, but yeah, I try to do. And being a nurse as well, I'm quite physically. I do a lot of steps. I probably do about 12,000 steps a day, so I'm quite active. Yeah,
that's a good
I do a lot of walking. So
you definitely get your numbers in there. So that is brilliant.
Yeah. No, it's definitely. I do a lot of walking. It's probably just not your traditional in the gym type. So, and that's another thing as well. Like the amount of weight that I've always lost, I've never had to join a gym program or everything I've done. I've either just gone for a walk with the kids or by myself, or it's nothing too over the top or expensive. Like it's quite basic. So
brilliant. And that's great that you found something that's not where you've had to join any extreme weight loss plan or join any extreme fitness plan. And I think they're very enticing, but you've shown that you're able to do this, a normal working mum, and you've been able to influence your family and make things change for the better.
It's extremely hard when you've got a young family to trying to find the time, to eat properly and to meal prep and to exercise when you can. And it's a big thing that we've tried to make in our family. Like, I'll go to a Weight Watchers meeting. I go one day a week on a Wednesday night, and we've made a kind of like a thing in our family. I'm like, well, that's my me time for myself. This is
Yeah,
me looking after myself. It's, you can't pour from an empty cup. So if you don't have that time out to yourself, or if you don't look after yourself, everyone suffers.
exactly. And I think as a young mum, I think self-care is definitely something that we need to listen to at any age. That if
Mm,
you've got a family, if you're busy, if you have all these commitments, if you let that self-care go, then you're an empty cup. So
mm,
your self-care is taking yourself to Weight Watchers and having that time, that group meeting. And I follow Slimming World in the UK,
mm.
and we also have a group meeting, and I do like that. I'm inspired by it. If I have a really bad week, I find it boosts me, it lifts me to hear the other inspirational conversations that people are having, and those challenges as well. It's not just about seeing fantastic transformational stories or listening to those. It's about hearing somebody say, I've had a really, really bad week, but you know what? I'm
Yeah.
going to get back on it.
And I think it's nice to actually know, to go to a group, to know that you're not the only one doing it, because it can be hard when you feel like you're the only one, on a diet.
Mm,
It can be a little bit isolating sometimes, because you think, am I the only one going through this? But then when you, like, same with Slimming World, like when you go to your meeting, you have other people around you, and you're like, okay, we're all doing this together. We're all going through the same challenges. I also find with the weekly meeting as well, it's nice to have that person with the scales every week, so you can't cheat, because, like, I know with myself at home, like, I'd say, oh, I'm not having a good week, I'll worry about it next week,
mm,
and the next week, and the next week. And then I think having that accountability of
mm.
someone weighing you every week, I think that's a big thing that actually keeps you on track.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, that accountability, and
Mm.
knowing that if you don't turn up, you'll probably get a text message if you're anything like my consultant. We missed you. Where were you? So no, I think accountability is the thing that you pay for more than
Yep.
the health plan, in a way, because that is what will keep me making those healthy choices throughout the week, and especially at the weekend. So how do you find your weekends? Are they a busy time for you? Is that a time that you generally work, or do you have weekends off?
It just depends. I usually work probably every second weekend. I do find it hard food wise. I do kind of slack off a little bit, probably like the Saturday and the Sunday. I have found though that Weight Watchers has kind of stopped me from having the big blowouts, the big binges that I would probably used to have,
Hmm.
mainly because I do know that weigh-in's kind of looming on the
Yeah.
Wednesday. I usually will, like, on a probably Saturday or Sunday. I will, like, if I usually work on a Saturday morning, I do relax a little bit, like, on a Saturday night, and on a Sunday we'll have like a family lunch together or a dinner, and then usually Monday straight back onto it. So I mean, I'm a little bit flexible in that sense, because I think, I'm not going to give up everything. Like, as I said, like, because I look at this like weight loss journey as an ongoing thing, but
Hmm.
I'm like, I'm not going to give up the weekends. Like, I'm obviously not going to throw the towel straight in, but it is nice just to have a couple of days off.
Definitely. Are there any like trigger foods that you have where you found an alternative to those?
We do a lot from scratch. We cook majority of our foods from, real basic ingredients, just because of that thing as well. Like, I do notice that, especially being a nurse, and I used to do a lot of shift work when I was younger. I do a lot of night shifts. I used to eat a lot of pre-packaged, like, frozen meals, and yeah, like a lot of instant food, and you don't realize how much hidden fat, salt, sugar is in all of that. We do use a lot of natural yogurt on the WW program. One of the programs, the non-fat yogurt's like a free food, so
Yeah.
we'd often use that. So I'll replace that, like, instead of cream or sour cream or anything, like, to thicken it up. So I do find it does teach you kind of like if you want like a creamy dessert, like, it does kind of give you, like you said, like, you'd use your yogurt versus your cream or
Mm.
your butter. And, like, even using fruit as well to sweeten, like, if you make like a muffin or a cake, like, you can use like apples, like, you can use that
Yes.
instead to sweeten, or bananas, like, bananas are often used instead of butter. So I do find it has helped that way, like, and it kind of helps you to not sneak in fruit and vegetables, but actually helps you probably to increase, your your daily fruit
Your
and veg
intake.
intake, because you actually are using it instead of sugar.
Definitely. And to increase your intake of fruit and vegetables and to bulk out on those rather than the high fat carbs or the fats, the complex fats, then that is a way to lose weight easily and nutritiously. And I think our bodies must heave like a massive sigh of relief that we're actually for once doing the right thing by our bodies, because when I look back over the time that I've been trying to lose weight, and I'm a classic yo-yo diet, I've gone up and down the scales for many reasons, but particularly now I'm finding myself at my heaviest weight. I just think my body has done me proud, you know, throughout all this weight gain, throughout, you know, I've had problems with my knees, I've had weight gain and all these different things, and yet my body is by my side doing its thing. I've not had any major, touch wood, any major health concerns. And I think through interviewing the guests that I've had on so far, and they have put on a lot more weight than I have, and they have more extreme health concerns, I just think, at what point does it take somebody to listen to the bodies and say, actually, you need to just stop and you need to make that turn and that change, and you're doing that, which is fantastic.
The main thing I felt mainly was how tired I was. I just felt I was so tired, and just my energy levels were just terrible. And I did notice when I got back onto the program was that my energy levels, like I can bounce back a lot quicker. Like obviously having small children, you know, I don't have a lot of sleep sometimes, but I've noticed even, it's funny, like even now, like I'm probably getting the least amount of sleep that I've had, but I have more energy because I'm eating better. Whereas probably when I was younger and I was a lot thinner, but I wasn't eating properly. And I remember I was just tired all the time. And I'm finding now that, yeah, I think because I'm actually eating properly. And that's what I find with following a program, is that you actually are more directed to eat your fruit and vegetables. Whereas if I'm doing it on my own, like if I would just calorie count, I'd go, oh, you know, I can have a block of chocolate for breakfast. It's the same calories as, you know, having Wheat Bix. So I need that direction. Like I actually need that actual direction to say, eat your fruit, eat your vegetables. Because if I'm left on my own, I'll just eat chocolate all day. Like more than happy to do that.
That's what I don't quite understand about calorie counting. I know people have had success with it. If I was given these calories, I can't remember how much it is for my weight or size. I think it's around 14. Is it 1400 to 1600 calories a day? I would do exactly that. It would be white processed food. It would be chocolate. It would be milk and cream, and I would probably go to the gym every day to get more calorie deficit just so that I could eat more. I don't think calorie counting would work for me at all.
I find it's a bit too much freedom. Like it's like, well, obviously when you do have a substantial amount of weight to loss, there's a reason why you've put it on, and obviously you're just eating too much. And that's the thing, if all it just says is cut back your calories and you're not learning what to cut back on, like you don't learn anything. And that's what I find with the WW program, is it takes you back through grassroots of actually fruit, vegetables, dairy. Well, if you don't eat dairy, like a non-dairy version, your lean proteins. It's real basics. Like it's real grassroots stuff, but it's stuff that you have just kind of forgotten about as life goes on. And it does lean more towards like your non-processed food, and cooking as well. Like it's very big on cooking food from scratch, which is actually quite different from a lot of the programs that we have here in Australia. A lot of them now are lots like a prepackaged meal program where they'll deliver the food to your house, and they're quite expensive. They're quite dear, and then you're expected to, once you're finished, that's it. And then that's what happens. Everyone puts the weight back on, and they spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and because you've learnt nothing. Like you don't know how to cook, or you're eating it on your own, then you have to cook another meal for your family. And that's the thing, like we've learned to cook again, like basic foods, and you kind of learn to adjust, like even you kind of learn to adjust the recipes that you've got already. Like you don't have to, like you can have pizza, and there's a lot of different types of pizza recipes that you can use, and they're good for you because they've got a lot of vegetables in them. And they're, you know, very low fat cheese. So that's where I find it's good, because I'm just learning, you know, like it's normal food. It's nothing you know, nothing packaged. I mean, they have their packaged stuff, but it's like, it's real food.
Definitely. And I think we have to question ourselves, don't we? What state have we got to where we have to pay a company to hand deliver food to our door? It's a very nanny state world, isn't it, that we live in, if we don't actually trust ourselves, firstly to keep food in our house that we can't be trusted around, and secondly to actually prepare a meal that is nutritious and balanced. Because I'd imagine that for these people that take upon these diets that are delivered to their door, either they're in a family and then they have their meal on their own, which is must be quite a lonely isolated thing to do, or they're alone eating this waiting for this delivery. It's just, I think it's quite bizarre, really. I think it's quite bizarre.
The food's not great, like, and the meals are quite small, and I mean they'd be probably like £75, I'd say, like about 150 Australian dollars. So they're not cheap a week. And the food's, it's just crap. Like, it's just processed. Like, and this is the thing, like, it is put across here in Australia, a lot of these meals that do get delivered to your house. I mean, because everyone is so time poor, you know, everyone works full time, or you know, got busy lives, and that's the thing. It's not really teaching you anything. So once you finish, you're back to square one again. Like, you haven't learned anything. All you've learned is that I can buy the food to come to me. Once you're done, you just fall straight back into the old habits again.
Exactly. So you mentioned that when you were living with your parents were fit and healthy, and at what point did you discover that you had an issue with your food, that at some point you lost a little bit of control around that? Or was it the case that you didn't notice it and that the weight crept on?
I was a quite overweight child growing up. As I said, like, my parents were quite slim and they've never ever had a weight problem. So I was eating what they would eat, and even now, like, they're the type of people that'll leave a block of chocolate in the fridge and be there for a month. Whereas I'm the type of person, if I have a block of chocolate, I'll eat the whole thing in one sitting.
Yeah.
So it was like, just growing up, like, it was always a battle for me, and I tried everything. Even I remember just being a teenager being so miserable because because my parents had never had any issues with food, they didn't really know how to address it. So, and they didn't see a problem with it either, because they just said, oh, you know, they were like, oh, you know, you'll grow out of it. And I think I just developed bad eating habits. And I, even now, like, I'm only just starting to get out of some of the bad habits that I did have growing up. That like, I'm notorious for eating at 4 o'clock. I'd get home from school and I'd eat out the cupboard, and then I wouldn't eat my dinner. So I'd skip tea. I'd say, no, I'm not eating tea. I've eaten too much when I got home. And then 9 o'clock comes along, and then I'd eat a half packet of biscuits. And I found I was still doing that even as an adult. And only probably, I'd say maybe the last 2 years, I've actually got out of that habit of going, no, you can actually wait till dinner instead of eating everything as soon as you get home. Right. So that's how it was hard. Like, I am finding now as an adult, I'm trying to kind of change the habits that I had as, you know, as a teenager and as a child. And only now as I'm starting to address them, because I've got children growing up now, and I'm like, I don't want them to go through what I went through. I don't want them to have these bad habits that I went through, and then to grow overweight and then having to go through, you know, to be miserable like what I was when I was a teenager, you know, not being able to fit into my school uniform, and you know, seeing all my other friends wearing clothes that I couldn't wear. And I just think, like, I think back now, and I just, you know, like, it's quite sad. Like, I think of being as a kid, like, I always was upset because I was, you know, the chubby, you know, I was the chubby one in the school.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's funny, like, now as an adult, now I look back and I just think, oh, now I've got children, I have to really mindful of how I eat now, because I have children now and they're growing up, and I don't want them to get the bad habits that I had. No. So that's been quite interesting, probably since I've had kids, of having to think of that now. Like, I think that's probably why my habits have actually changed, because it's not just me anymore. Like, now it's like my whole family that I have to be aware of.
And that's it. And little ones look up, don't they? That's the thing. They're always looking
and
up.
It's hard because I've got a 2-year-old who's quite fussy. eating, and my husband made a fair point about a month ago, and he goes, well, you're a fussy eater too. He goes, he's looking at you. He goes, you don't like this, you don't like tomatoes, you don't like this, you don't like that. And he goes, well, he's doing what you're doing. And I went, wow, it actually is. It's actually, I'm actually, you know, passing this on. So I've had to start eating, you know, fruit and vegetables that I probably wouldn't have eaten as a child. But I'm like, I have to, because I have children now.
Yes. And we always feel guilty, don't we, as mums? The guilt is never far away.
Oh yes, mother's guilt's always there.
It's always there, it's always present. So how long did you find it to be able to meet that balance after children were born? I think, my son now, he's actually 13 next week. But I remember having given birth and looking at my body thinking, okay, we need to look at shifting the weight, but at the same time I was breastfeeding and I was so tired, ridiculously tired, and I was kind of like torn between what do I do, and my mobility was very poor as well, so I couldn't take my child for his first walk until he was around 5 months old because I had a problem with my pelvis. I was in agony, so I'd had this child, I was in agony, and then there's this pressure to kind of like lose the weight. And people are looking, aren't they? I don't know if
really
that's something that you internalise, but it's kind of, what do I do? Do I look at losing the weight? Do I look at my sleep and trying to get more of a sleep pattern? There's a lot of pressure, isn't there? So how did you find able to get that balance when your children were born?
It was really hard because I had both pregnancies. I had friends that were pregnant at the same time who literally didn't gain anything more than just their stomach, whereas every time I got pregnant I just seemed to go quite round. And I found it really hard because I had people around me who had children the exact same age as my baby who were back into their jeans, I'm not even joking, but 3 weeks after they'd had their child, and here I am still like in my maternity clothes at like 3-4 months later. And it was really hard because as you said, like there's this whole thing of, you know, you're expected to get your body back, and then you're expected to, you know, keep doing everything, and you're expected to, you know, keep the house clean, and there's all these different like pressures, and it's just, you just expected pretty much to go straight back to what you were. And it's like, well, you can't. Like you've had nine months growing this human, you've had this child, like it takes, I honestly believe it takes at least 9 months to get remotely back to where you were, because, you know, whether you're breastfeeding, whether you've had a cesarean, like you go through so many things. Your body's just gone through, it's like being hit by a car. Like it's so traumatic to go through your body. And then everyone just expects you to go back to normal. Like they go, okay, yep, you know, when are you gonna, you know. And like I remember the first one I went back to work, I was on maternity leave and I went back to visit, and I think he was maybe 3 or 4 months old, and I had an older lady say to me, oh well, by the time you come back you'll be able to lose all that baby fat that you've got. I fell on the floor, and I was like, I'm not really that big as what I think I am. And then I thought later on, I thought, how rude, like how, you know, like I've just had this child, like I've had no sleep, I'm doing all, you know, I thought I've been hit by a car, and all she could see was that I wasn't back to where I was physically, and I thought, oh, it was just awful. So yeah, it's hard because you have all these pressures, like, and it is hard in the especially first couple of months because you get that such small fragment amount of sleep that it is really hard to then exercise because you're so tired and you're literally just trying to keep it all together.
Yes.
To then on top of that start like a weight loss journey, and you know it's really hard. Like the first couple of months is just, it's just a blur because you're just trying to survive pretty much. And then on top of that, like if you've put on weight in your pregnancy, then you think, oh, now I've got to lose all this weight on top of that.
That's another thing, another added thing. And I think that you're right, that we just need to take time and recognise that we have literally been hit by a car. I heard, or I read somewhere, that the actual pain that you experience when you know, if my husband's listening to this, I was just going on about it again, but the actual pain that you experience in childbirth is apparently more than a human should actually experience. So it's like you go through that, don't you? And then like the day after, you've got this little person who needs.
That's the thing. Like you've had, like I've had, like both my children quite big. They were 10 pound, both my boys. So I had cesareans, and you've gone through this huge surgery, and then they hand your baby, and then they say go home. I'm like, any other surgery, they send you home with flowers and you get to go bed rest. I was like, they hand you this little person and they go, all right, off you go. We have taught you nothing. You have to just work it out. I said, there's no other surgery or there's no other huge thing you go through where they send you home and give you nothing. And I said, it's just awful.
So yeah, it's quite bizarre, isn't it, when you think about it? But you know, you've done really well, and I've looked at your Instagram account, and you've got some really good photos on there showing your family, the healthy food that you're preparing, and some great transformation photos as well. So for anybody listening and they're looking to follow you on Instagram, what is your Instagram page?
So it's victoria.on.ww.
Lovely. What I'll do is I'll put that on my notes for the podcast when that gets released out. So I'd like to thank you for your time, Victoria. I can't believe I actually managed to do a 11-hour time difference. So I set the alarm this morning. I thought I can't lay in. I must get to Victoria. So thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and thank you for chatting for me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
What an inspirational lady, just to crack on and get on with it, with the work, looking after the kids and losing weight and planning all these beautiful meals that she makes. And she's done really well since I last spoke to her. She's actually appeared in a cookbook for WW and had a photo shoot in Sydney, and she looks absolutely stunning in a yellow outfit. I don't believe it's available in the UK yet, but she's doing so well. And I think this is just a reminder of what is actually possible when you put your mind to it and you focus on what you need. And especially when you've got young children, it can be hard, can't it? And when you're busy with work, just to think, okay, what do I need to stick to plan? So thank you for joining me for another episode this week. I love the feedback that I'm receiving. It's really, really appreciated. If you're able to go to iTunes and write and leave a review, I would really appreciate that, because that will help me and my visibility on iTunes and on the other podcasts. So I'll leave you for the week. Have a great week, and I'll be in touch soon. Take care.